You groaned upon hearing the penetrant beeping of your phone. Someone was calling you. It was the middle of the night. Sighing, you rolled onto your side and fished for the annoying piece of technology. And finally you took hold of it. And you were surprised. It wasn't a phone call, it were texts. From your Fazbear employee app. It was a simple texting app used for announcements by management and for employee chit-chat. However, it was also used by the 4 main animatronics. It seemed to help with their nightly restlessness when there were no customers. In addition, all animatronic chat was employee exclusive. Other employees, with the exception of the on-duty engineer Kevin, who had moderator abilities, could not read the exchanges. You scratched your forehead when you read who sent the messages. Glamrock Freddy Bear. Why was Freddy waking you up in the middle of the night? Hello, I need emergency repairs, said the text. You blinked. This simple sentence had been repeated on once every 20 seconds. You sat up in your bed and quickly typed, Freddy, why are you messaging me? It felt like back in high school when your ex-boyfriend would message you as soon as you were, as he put it, a little too quiet. Oh, hello, Kevin. I need your help. There were 2 engineers working at the Mega Pizza Plex. You, the day shift mechanic, and on-duty engineer Kevin. On duty meaning he would spend most of his time at home, and simply respond to repair calls for Fazbear franchises in his area around the clock. Freddy must have messaged the wrong person. For a moment you thought, and then simply volunteered. What's wrong, Freddy? You typed. There's something wrong with my voice box. You raised an eyebrow. That could be so many things. You sighed. Continuing to pose as Kevin, you simply answered, I'll be there in... You looked at your nightstand clock. 20 minutes. The next message surprised you. Usually it's 10. Did I message at a bad time? You rolled your eyes. Kevin, you workaholic, you muttered. No, I'm just using the bathroom. You hoped the animatronic would buy that lie. I see. Thank you for your efforts, Kevin. You sighed in relief, and you put your phone down. Rubbing your eyes, you jumped on your feet. The Pizzaplex manager Amir hated paying overtime, and would find as many ways as possible to prevent his employees to have it. Many, especially the security guards, loved this. But you wanted overtime money. So instead of calling Kevin to go over there for you, you got up, washed your face, and put on your uniform. The engineer uniform was a black jumpsuit with the letters engineer written on the back. Uniquely, it also came with a hood. It was pretty cool, but sometimes it got in the way. Then you grabbed your toolbox and left your dingy little apartment. You were a money saver. With your pay, you could afford a slightly better apartment than the rat house you were in, but why would you? Not like you knew anyone to brag about it. Slowly you stepped outside. With your toolbox on your arm, you marched up the street to your car. And then you were off. As you were driving, you got more phone messages. You sighed, really not wanting to text and drive. Stubborn, you just pressed forward. And just as you said, 20 minutes after you had promised Freddy you'd be there, you arrived in the parking lot of the Mega Pizza Plex. Sighing, you finally picked up your phone, and immediately giggled. "I'm so sorry, day engineer." All in uppercase letters. Adorable. "I thought I was talking to Kevin. You don't have to come. It's fine. I will contact Kevin immediately." The next text you got was from Kevin. "Hey kid, I'm pretty sure you got your ass over there already at the Plex. It's fine. I'll enjoy a good night's sleep. And you remember to punch in for overtime." And finally, the next text, once again, was from Freddy. "Kevin says he's busy with his family, so it was actually good I sent you those messages. I'll be waiting in parts and services, and don't forget to punch in your overtime card." Why was everybody reminding you of that? As if you would forget that. Slowly entered the lobby of the Mega Pizza Plex. Firstly, you checked in at the employee terminal. You made a noise of surprise. It seemed tonight there was no security guard present. Curiously, you checked the schedule. Must have been an error. Maybe the guy in charge had been busy with something when they made this week's shift schedule. Shrugging, you abandoned the terminal and punched in your credentials for your overtime. Then you proceeded to parts and services over the maintenance tunnels. The musky smell of dust-covered oily tunnels invaded your nostrils, but you pressed on regardless. And soon you entered parts and services. Here, the smell of oil was the most aggressive, and was almost unbearably hot, as the vent was covered in grime and hasn't been cleaned in months. Freddy was already sitting on the operation table inside the protective dome. A glass tube in the middle of parts and services where robotic arms would automatically perform maintenance. You walked over to the bear robot. "Good evening, Freddy." A garbled noise came from the bear. Following that, another message popped up on your phone. It read, "I'm sorry, I cannot talk." You smiled gently. "Okay. I'm going to remove your chest plate to get access to your voice box. In the meantime, tell me if anything happened to it today that may be causing it." You tried to be professional, but hearing this noise when he tried to speak, it had filled you with dread. You never heard anything comparable before. It was just horrendous. The arms of the protective dome carefully removed his chest plate. In the meantime, your phone beeped. You stepped next to Freddy and read the information out loud. "So, some teen bumped into you. Covered you in fizzy fast lemon fever." The bear nodded, and you narrowed your eyes. You looked down into Freddy's insides, and got really concerned. It was all sticky and gross. "Sheesh, you need a good cleaning," you said. Sighing, you returned to the maintenance panel. "I will run a simple cleaning program, then we will take a good look at your voice box." Freddy nodded as the dome closed and you deactivated Freddy for the cleanup. Then you went in thought. The animatronics had been built to be water resistant, and your theory was that the stickiness of the soda somehow did damage to the voice box after the liquid had dried. Once the cleanup was finished, you returned to the bear. By now you had reactivated him. He smiled at you, but still only garbage noise came from him. "Looks like you need a new voice box, Freddy." Maybe you could fix the box, but you were way too tired to deal with that now. Freddy's smile faltered. He gave you puppy eyes. "What's wrong, you big teddy? I'm not gonna scrap you." The phone beeped one more time. The text read, I'm embarrassed when people touch my insides. You raised an eyebrow. This isn't anything too unusual. Then a thought hopped into your brain. Wait, could this be something lewd for you? You grinned and then gently patted his head. Aw, aren't you a big old baby? Was that why you wanted Kevin? He nodded. You blushed and gave him a cocky grin. Such a cutie. You opened your toolbox and went to work at removing his voice box. As you unplugged it, Freddy audibly made a noise of discomfort. But he needed to go through this. His eyes widened when you lifted the heavy box out of his chest. You carried the broken voice machine over to the nearby workbench. It was so heavy it made you heave in the stale hot air. And then you proceeded over to the spare parts section, or parts and services. As you began searching for the endless cabinets, storage shelves and boxes, Freddy raised his head to look at you. For him, what you were doing was magic, since he wasn't programmed to dismantle himself and replace parts on his own. The animatronic found it incredibly fascinating watching people do things he quite literally wasn't made to do. You came back to his side. The new box was the same model, but shiny and new. Freddy admired it. Well, out with the old, in with the new. You smirked as you placed the box into its slot, gently inserting each cable in order according to the manual, before pressing the calibration buttons. Okay. The final setup was finished on the maintenance terminal, so one last time you left his side. Quickly you typed the lines into the old PC before pressing enter. Alright, Freddy, say something. You shouted into the dome.
Happy birthday, superstar!
You shrieked. That was way too loud. Oh, okay, I'll lower your volume, you said as you felt a bead of sweat run down your forehead. You played around with Freddy's voice settings until he sounded pretty much exactly like before the operation. Freddy climbed off the table.
I'm sorry for this, Miss Engineer.
You shrugged. It's fine.
No, it's not.
He took a step forward.
Please, allow me to buy you something.
You blinked. Technically, you were allowed to accept free stuff from the machines, but only as long as it was a verified hard work coupon. With a grin, you slapped his now closed chest piece, knowing full well, if the piece of paper wasn't used, the price of whatever he wanted to buy you would be deducted from your next paycheck. Only with the coupon, big guy. 7 minutes later, you and Freddy sat in the diner at Roxy Raceway, the service bot accepting the hard work ticket Freddy had printed out for you. After the heat inside of parts and services, Roxy Raceway felt pleasantly cool. And finally you could relax.
I thought you'd want pizza,
said Freddy. Why?
It's more expensive than a milkshake.
You shrugged. I need something cold in me, not something hot. He tilted his head.
Response registered. I apologize if I may have offended you.
You blinked. You did not? It sounded like a question.
My assumption had been constructed out of previous conversations we had, plus your employee profile.
You sighed. So Amir knows that when I get something for free, I go for the most expensive option? That's creepy. Freddy nodded. Once again, you sighed, this time in defeat. Never mind.
Are you upset?
You shook your head. Nah, actually, I feel pretty good. You smiled and leaned forward. I love working with you. Freddy laughed.
Oh, do you, engineer?
Nodding, you replied dryly. Yeah. When Roxy is damaged, she complains and moans about her being better at repairing herself, even though she doesn't even know how. Monty pretty much always needs to be completely shut down as he gets aggressive whenever repair takes too long. And Chica cannot shut the fuck up. Even when the voice box is damaged. Freddy chuckled awkwardly.
And, what would you say about me?
Pleasant. You're patient and kind, and you quickly realized you were beginning to blush. You know, you're nice. He tilted his head.
I am detecting increased body temperature. Are you all right?
You blushed harder, but before you could retort, your milkshake arrived. So you simply decided to just look away and take a few sips.
I appreciate your compliments a lot, Mrs. Engineer. I always have such fun times with you.
Hearing him praise you, you took a big gulp, paying with it tenfold. Your head froze as every neuron in your brain screamed in pain. Brain freeze! Concerned Freddy stepped next to you, gently rubbing over your back with his massive hand.
Engineer?
You coughed, in too much pain to respond. But eventually, the pain subsided ever so slightly, and you looked up at Freddy. It's fine. Your voice was hoarse, and you were tired. The fact you haven't slept yet, having crept up on you like a stalker.
You should return home.
Freddy took your hand, gently.
Allow me to guide you.
Before the animatronic could whisk you away, you grabbed your milkshake. Thankfully, it had been delivered in a plastic cup so you could take it with you. As Freddy guided you towards the exit, you slowly nipped at the straw.
Are you sure you should keep drinking that?
You grumbled. It was a brain freeze, not something serious, like an allergy. Freddy shrugged.
Well, if you say so.
Eventually, he dropped you off at the lobby entrance.
I once again apologize for the inconvenience.
You sighed. Freddy, it's fine. I get paid for this.
I clock you out. Don't worry about that.
You nodded. Thanks. For a moment, the two of you fell silent. You're about to leave when he spoke up.
Did you mean what you said earlier? About me being nice and kind and all that?
You looked up at him and smiled. Yes. Yes, I did. And without warning, Freddy gave you a tender hug. His plastic shell pressing against your body. You couldn't help but feel safe. You accepted his embrace, melting into his touch like you were a wax statue. Wrapping your own arms around him. Freddy? You whispered.
Thank you. That was one of the nicest things any one of the employees has ever said to me. Or any adult for that matter.
You hummed. Really?
Day Guard Brian treats us like the machines we are. It's understandable. And Kevin is always too interested in the machinery and doesn't understand how we feel. It makes him a bit cold, but he's also the one who orders software-hardware updates. So I feel like that's how he shows his affection towards us.
He squeezed a little harder.
It's nice to be treated kindly by an adult. If I had lips, I'd kiss you right now.